There are two things that are part of the structure that is myself that bring me to lose my definitions. To lose the edge of what I believe I am or the certainty of who I think I am. And I think that all human beings in general have the feeling, to some degree, some magnitude, that we don't really know who we are or where we end or begin. And this has to do with the nature of personhood, the nature of being an individual. As human beings, we can understand what being an individual is. We feel like we are separate. There is a question as to who we are as a separate entity. Even if ultimately we're not separate, we have the freedom to see that separation, to understand it, and to ultimately really realize that it doesn't exist. But there's a lot of things that we have to go through, and a lot of stages we have to go through before we reach that period of infinite expansion. And it's not a period that is it's not a stage. It's not a section of time. It's a level that you reach that once you get there, the expansion simply doesn't stop, and that's basically enlightenment, moksha, liberation, and true realization is when your lines do fall apart, when the edges of who you think you are do fall apart. But that's something that takes millions of years if you believe in reincarnation, and I do, and maybe even multiple Big Bangs. But now the two things I mentioned, the first, the minor one, is schizophrenia. I am schizophrenic, and I suffer from disassociation, which means that I do not feel associated with what society or what most people define as being a person, an individual. The lines of who I am as a person, as a separate entity, all my own from other entities, other beings, whether it be humans or not. And schizophrenia can induce this kind of disassociation, where you feel like you're above yourself a lot of the time. You're looking at yourself, but you don't really feel like you are that person you're looking down on, that person you're thinking about, that person that everyone views as you. You don't feel like you're that. And it's called psychosis. It's called, like I said, dissociation. It's called it can be called paranoia if it goes to extreme to where you are paranoid that you don't exist, and that's another part of it. These are all chalked up to psychosis and psychotic episodes when they're especially bad. And it can be inconvenient, and it can be actually hurtful, even if it sounds very spiritual. Not knowing who you are, where you begin or end. I mean, I'm not just talking about your body. I'm talking about the person you are, but also your body as well. Sometimes it feels like the edge of my body doesn't exist. Like my body isn't confined to a single anthropomorphic form, and that can be very it's very hard to function in those moments. But it's luckily for me, it's only moments, and they always open up a kind of surprise and amazement in me when I don't feel like I'm confined to this body. This is all chemical, but I do believe there's a spiritual aspect that is somehow distorted so that I feel fear because of it. Now, it's not necessarily a distortion in and of itself, but when I feel afraid because of this feeling and I can't operate with the body I'm in charge of, that's when it does become a problem, and it's not some abstract idea. It's happening. It is. Now, the second thing that I mentioned that I wanted to talk about is being a spiritual person. There's all kinds of spiritual people out there. I mean, you're probably spiritual to one degree or another. I mean, most likely, most people are. But the way I understand myself, God, the world, God, spirits, Loa, the cycle, the gods of cycles, the Vanir. These are all very. I understand them in a deeper way than their definitions imply. But being connected or trying to connect to these things, assuming they exist, and I do believe they exist, leaves one with a feeling that there isn't a purpose for oneself assigned to you as an individual. That your purpose is beyond yourself. And because your purpose is beyond yourself, because you feel that, because you try to understand that as a spiritual person, I feel that really I am nothing without being a part of humanity. And in many ways it's true, and ultimately it is true, but it can be a scary process of becoming a spiritual person, because you try not to want for yourself, and you try not to pursue goals for yourself. And I'm not saying I exceed in this or even I'm good at it. I'm just saying that's what I'm trying to do. And as a piece, and not as a whole in and of itself, or as the whole that I focus on pursuing or putting on a pedestal, which is ego. When I'm not pursuing selfhood in that way, in the individual way, in the ego way, in the selfish way, when I'm not pursuing in that way, it's hard to see the edge of yourself, and sometimes it's hard to function, especially if you accompany it with schizophrenia. But I did have a moment where I was particularly afraid today, and I didn't feel like my body was even a body. I felt like my skin, the edge of my very form, didn't have that definition, didn't have the outline, and I felt like I was a part of everything. And now these moments are very incredible and very scary, but when you have both your ideological side that's doing that and the schizophrenic side, it creates a reality for you that maybe only exists for moments or minutes, but it creates a reality where your consciousness feels like it's floating. It doesn't really have, it's not even like an orb, it's floating, but it's like it's everywhere floating, and there's nowhere to go because it is everywhere. And it's amazing, but it can also be scary. And I did have a few of those moments today, because I've been struggling with trying to understand who I am, as I believe most people are, but recently it's been very strong. It's a very strong urge to try and figure out who I am, and it's a very strong feeling that I simply am not who I am, even in the person I am, not even just like the body, that too, but and I've been realizing recently that that the points that I view myself, the metaphorical outline of myself, the person I believe that I am, and this is not related to the body, I'm talking about metaphorically, ideologically, and spiritually, they seem like intersections of forces that impose themselves on me as they impose themselves on everyone. They seem like these dots that outline who I think I am seem like combinations of what people wanted for me and what I thought I wanted and what I think I want, and the experiences I've had and the memories I still hold and the emotions I feel. They feel like intersections from a bunch of very large forces that I didn't really choose, that make up the outline of who I think I am. And that really has been me recently. And it's something else. It's pretty amazing, and it's terrifying and amazing. And the joy of it is that you feel very alive when you don't feel like your life is separate. And I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. I don't really have a solution to the problem I'm facing. It can make you quite mad, make you insane to not understand who you are, but it can also free you from the confines of who you think you are at the same time. So if you're struggling with this, or you find this interesting, feel free to comment. Feel free to look me up on Facebook, same name, Hunter Salazar, Texas. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because I never really stopped thinking about this, about who I am and why I believe I'm this person or who I want to be. And in these places where we question ourselves in this way, the connections to what the universe is and what reality is, those connections seem so much stronger when you don't feel like there is a border to your own. And hey, thank you for watching this. If you made it this far, thank you very much. It's been kind of a rant, but I just wanted to share some of the thoughts I've been having today, some of the feelings, some of the experiences, in their terror and in their wonder. And this has been a topic for me that I've been going on about a lot recently, as if you've watched my videos recently, you can tell. But I feel like I'm getting a better and better picture, and there's moments when it's terrifying, and there's moments when it's pure joy and ecstaticness, if that's a word, ecstaticness. And I feel like once all this tinder is collected and burned in the fire of understanding, awakening, and consciousness, even in the short term, just, in the next few days, few weeks, to the very long-term ultimate of either many lifetimes or this lifetime. Once that is burned, there's going to be a special kind of warmth of truth that is produced. Thank you very much for watching, and hit that thumbs up down there. I appreciate it. Subscribe if you want more like this.